Nelson Mandela went to the stock exchange to assure investors he is committed to economic stability. Mandela is expected to sweep to power in the nation's first all-race elections. The South African military said it will deploy 100,000 troops and police to ensure a peaceful vote. South Africa is expecting a huge voter turnout next week. Only a few hardline whites are planning to boycott the election. Most are willing to give democracy a chance. For encouragement, they can look to a neighboring nation that's made the transition to majority rule. Dan Rather reports from South Africa and Zimbabwe.
Across South Africa, many white citizens worry that the good life will turn bitter and more dangerous for them under black majority rule. Despite fears that the economy would falter, for most whites in Zimbabwe today, life couldn't be better.
Oh, yes, I wouldn't be anywhere else in the world.
The whites are here. They still are in control of the economy. They have most of the land in the country, they being commercial farmers.
In South Africa, the voting begins on Tuesday. CBS News will be there, and Dan will have another special report on Monday.
Okay, we're done. All right. Okay. Yes, guys.
Apparently, we don't exactly know how it happened, but he heard a noise. He came out to see what the noise was. By then, I got here, and the guys had run off, and as I said, they ran off, and he was lying here in a critical condition.
Denver headquarters, which is basically next to us. There where we come, yeah.
I don't want to look at them, I want to help them. We are not giving up. I don't believe that the way that it is being done is fair at all. We've had no say in the matter. We have taken, or the government has taken us to court over the farm. We won the case, but they are still adamant that they're going to throw us out. So, of course, we're not going to give up because it is not fair what is going on.
$50 billion. What can you buy with it?
Nothing, nothing.
Not matches, maybe.
Matches.
Box of matches.
Yes.
Coke?
No.
How much is a Coke?
300 billion.
300 billion.
Yes.
Bus?
Check the nuts on his head.
So you need 10 of these, eh?
Yes.
Yeesh.
Grew tobacco, maize,
Kevin de Boyle is on the front line of a new battle for land in Zimbabwe.
So how many acres have you got left here?
Nothing now. Absolutely nothing. They've taken everything.
His farm has been seized by a local ZANU-PF official who's installed his own livestock in the outbuildings and sent his workers to live on the land. This is one of them, hiding his face from the camera. Kevin is surrounded now, and they're also trying to evict him from his home.
What are they saying they'll do if you don't leave?
Normal story, hey? We'll come and jambanja you. Violently remove you.
This video, filmed 3 weeks ago, shows another farmer trying to keep an invading gang from his land. There are threats, and then they turn on him with sticks. 80 farms have been seized like this year.
Come on, Sticky.
Kevin de Boyle used to grow tobacco and maize here, but now, like many of the thousands of farms seized over a decade, his fields produce nothing. Emma Hurd, Sky News, Zimbabwe.
Right.
Historically,
the people who've
they have a debt. contributing to farming. Historically, they have a debt to pay.
Yes, the land, they occupied the land illegally. They seized the land from our people.
Look.
And therefore, the process of reform, land reform, involved their having to hand over the land. We agreed upon this with the British, by the way.
Some 80% of that land was acquired after you took office, some of the farmland, and with the various certificates that mean government approval. Why are these people being hounded out of the country? Why are they being
they are not being
hounded off their land then?
No, they are not being hounded out of the country at all. Those who are in industry, in manufacturing, in mining are not being...
The farmers I'm talking about. Why is that wonderful farmland, and why are they being...
What are you talking about? We are getting land from them, and that's all. They are not being hounded out of the country. Not at all.
They're being hounded off their land?
Not of their land.
It's not theirs.
Our land.
Even though they bought it? Even though they bought it with the certificates of approval from the government? But they're citizens, aren't they? And isn't this farming disaster contributing to
Citizens by colonization? Seizing land from the original people, indigenous people of the country?
But how did that all go so wrong?
That?
How did that all go so wrong? Because when you came in, it was about reconciliation.
No, they knew about it. They knew we had this program of land acquisition and land reform.
The fact is, though, that the country has pretty much plunged into a pretty dysfunctional state by all international indicators. My question is, do you regret that some 4 million people have left in the last 3 to 5 years?
I don't know about those numbers.
In 2 months' time, experts agree the harvest here in Zimbabwe will be declared a failure. And unless action is taken right now, millions of people will go hungry.
We're very concerned that Zimbabwe is returning to the brink of a very severe food crisis. Already there are more than 2 million people who need food aid in the country. That number's going to climb though because as you can see, the harvest has failed.
Our top story this evening, land expropriation without compensation is here to stay, and those who fear the proposed policy must not panic. Well, that's the assurance from President Cyril Ramaphosa. He was answering questions in the National Assembly.
So, Blair, keep your England and let me keep my Zimbabwe.
And he must keep his America, we will keep our South Africa.
Precious Moyo arrived in South Africa 10 years ago, escaping Zimbabwe's financial implosion under Robert Mugabe. After initially working for several years, Moyo has fallen on hard times.
The economy, everything was bad, but I was just trying to move for greener pastures coming down here. We do not have jobs, same as the situation in our country.
She believes the problems South Africa is facing are all too familiar.
It's getting more like Zimbabwe because from the look of it, everything, the groceries, you can see, even if you see the groceries, they're going up every now and then, and the fuel prices, they're going up. Same situation as in Zim.
Rupert Nathan is Chief Operating Officer at Fat Profits and joins us now. Rupert, very nice to see you. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. So these mining companies, these huge international mining companies, they're retrenching in Southern Africa, aren't they?
Yes, it's a continuation of a trend that's been in place for a while, that the political uncertainty is deemed unacceptable, and companies are either divesting from interests in South Africa or not putting new money into that country, whereas indigenous companies such as De Beers are also selling up and moving out.
Let's cut to the chase on this. You believe that there is a serious risk that South Africa will go the same way as Zimbabwe and actually be excluded by international companies in the whole because of political developments?
Yes, it's appearing that way, that if you look at the history of Zimbabwe and what's unfolding in South Africa, there are tragic similarities.
You said South Africa has the potential to become Zimbabwe.
If you don't address the challenges that I spoke about, we are going to get to a point where black people will be mobilized by thugs to go and occupy farms, as we have seen in Zimbabwe.
So here you are, it's all locked in, okay?
And the safety valves which existed in the case of Zimbabwe do not exist. So if anyone wants to start down that route, I'm afraid they will very, very quickly find an utterly explosive situation, because, you know, you would get major riots and you would get all sorts of, you know, I mean, look, if you did here what Mugabe did in Zimbabwe, then very quickly you would not be able to feed the cities. Think about that. You'd get food riots, which would quickly become xenophobic riots.